Welcome to the Crazy Chicken People podcast. If you're crazy about chickens, then you're in the right place. What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning into the Crazy Chicken People podcast again. I am your host, Thomas Xenos, and today we are talking about selling those beautiful farm-fresh eggs, if it's right for you, and how quickly it will make you rich. Dang it. Got my notes mixed up. Okay, and if selling those eggs can be profitable. Nope, that's not it either. Today we're talking about selling chicken eggs, and can you make enough to help offset your feed cost? Okay, there we go. Whether you're new to raising backyard chickens or have been doing it for years, the idea of selling your eggs, be it for fun or to help with feed costs, is probably something that's crossed your mind. But there's more to it than just setting up a roadside stand or posting your eggs for sale on Facebook. And in this episode, we're going to talk about advertising, pricing, and questions about permits. I'll also be leaning on the experiences of fellow chicken keepers I've spoke to who have found mixed results selling their eggs. By the end, you should have a better idea of how to navigate this venture effectively and hopefully successfully. So let's get the least fun topic out of the way first, and that is the often forgotten or more likely ignored matter of permits. I don't intend on getting into the details of each state's different laws. We don't have time for that, and it would be pretty boring. But I should say, it's important that you at least take a look at what your state does require for you to legally sell your eggs. I know here in California, anyone who sells eggs, even from their backyard flock, is required to register with the Department of Food and Agriculture. This is generally a pretty easy thing to do, but it does cost $75, and then I think it's a $50 fee every year to keep your permit active. Now, without revealing too much about how my tinfoil hat fits, I'm just going to come out and say, I'm not a fan of government overreach, and in my opinion, trying to squeeze a few bucks out of somebody just for trying to fund their hobby is exactly that. If you feel better about getting registered and doing it by the book, then you absolutely should. Just be sure that you know the laws in your state, then make your own decision on how you're going to proceed. I will provide a couple of links in the show notes for at least the California guidelines. I would imagine that every state has something you could look up fairly easily and see if they do regulate egg sales on a small scale. So let's move on from that and talk about how you're going to prepare your eggs for sale. California says that eggs must be washed and refrigerated if you're going to sell them, and this applies to selling from your backyard flock as well, which I guess I understand why. Food handling and safety is important, but I don't agree with the rule. And I feel totally comfortable selling my unwashed, unrefrigerated eggs. And that's because I know that I keep really good track of when they were gathered and when they will be good until. I keep them very organized, and I'm also pretty conservative with how I mark them for their shelf life. We did an episode a while back about collecting, sorting, and storing your eggs, the options that you have there. This is something you really want to have a system in place for, whether you're going to start selling eggs or you're just keeping them for yourself. You know, obviously when you're selling food to somebody else, the last thing you want to do is get them sick. So the important thing is that you've got that system for collecting and sorting, you keep them safe to eat, you keep them clean, and you keep track of their freshness. Get familiar with the different storage methods, be it washed or unwashed, refrigerated or not. I think it's important that you stick to one or the other or have a really good way of keeping those two things separated. The last thing you want to do is hand somebody a carton of eggs that they believe is going to be good for the next few weeks, and for whatever reason, it's not. Once you've got that down, the next step is going to be setting a price for your eggs, and this can be tricky. Egg prices in the store vary by region, so probably start with looking at what your local competition is. You know, eventually, you're going to hear somebody say that they can get a dozen eggs at Walmart for $2 or $3, and why should they pay double the price and go out of the way to get yours? Those are not your customers. If they don't understand the difference between the eggs that they get at Walmart for $2 and what they're going to get from you, then it's probably not even worth your time pursuing them as a customer. And I say that because your eggs shouldn't be compared to the cheapest mass-produced product on the market. A more fair comparison is probably versus the best organic or free range eggs that you see at the store, and even then, you're probably offering a better product. Your customers are those who appreciate the fact that your chickens live an amazing life, that the eggs they're getting are fresh, way better tasting, and likely far more nutritious than what they're getting at the grocery store. Folks who are happy to support local businesses and get away from factory farm food when they can, that's really who you want to look to market to. You might take a look on Facebook or local farmers markets to get an idea of what others are selling for, and you should be able to identify what a reasonably fair market price is. My guess is probably going to be between $5 and $7, depending on where you're at. And I don't want to say this to be discouraging, but it's really hard to actually be profitable selling eggs from your backyard flock. If you add up the cost of the chickens, your coop, the feed, all the time you put into this, I don't really see a path to coming out in the black on this one. If you've got a lot of chickens and are moving a ton of eggs, maybe you're getting your feed in bulk, or if you're able to free range and supplement a lot of their diet that way, maybe you can make it a profitable thing. But I think the goal for most of us is just to help cover the cost of feed a little bit and experience the joy of sharing part of what you love. If you are able to sell some eggs each month and that helps pay for your hobby or your obsession in the case of some of us, I think there's some real satisfaction in that. But just to see how the numbers do line up, I did a little quick math to illustrate what you might expect. Using feed prices in my area, which is about $26 for a 50-pound bag, average laying hen eats about 1.5 pounds of food a week. Say you have 4 hens, it's going to be 6 pounds of food a week, or just over $3 worth, maybe $3.50. Add in the scratch or mealworms or other things that you might pick up for them, call it $5 a week. That's about $260 a year to feed your 4 hens. Let's say all those hens lay 300 eggs a year each. That's 1,200 eggs or 100 dozen. If you sell each dozen for $5, you've brought in $500 or about $140 in profit after your feed costs. Not going to talk about the cost of the chickens themselves or the coop because, frankly, it would be a little discouraging. I mean, you probably didn't buy them or build that coop with the intent of making money on their eggs, so just call it paying for the infrastructure. Now, if you spend about 2 hours a week taking care of those 4 hens, and I would say that's probably on the low side, over the course of a year, you make $1.35 an hour on your eggs. Just about any added costs like gas to deliver, and you're back to about even at best. And honestly, if selling a dozen eggs every week gets me even in feed cost, I would be stoked. That probably won't happen for me. I like giving away eggs too much, and half my flock is silkies, which lay a much smaller egg that even if I did try to sell, I really couldn't charge full price for. Hatching eggs could possibly make that a different story, but I feel like that's a different topic. Of everyone I talked to about selling their eggs, negotiating a fair price was one of the common issues that people expressed when sharing their challenges. Honestly, most people just won't value your eggs the way you do. So you have to find a price range that won't turn people away, but still makes sense for you financially. I think if you go into this not expecting to make a ton of money, but rather just to help cover the cost of keeping, well, what is in my case, way too many chickens, you should be pretty happy with the results in the end. Okay, moving on to marketing your eggs and where to sell them. This is something I really dug into, and I was able to talk to quite a few people about, since everyone is having to do this at some level. If you're only trying to sell a couple dozen eggs a week, you can probably keep it simple. Talk to your friends, family, neighbors. You're pretty likely to find a few people who would be more than happy to pick up a carton a week from you. But what if you are trying to go larger? I'll start with a few things that I commonly heard did not work. First one is Craigslist. I have to say, I didn't even know that people really still use Craigslist unless you're purposely looking to get scammed or robbed. It's so impersonal, it's flooded with generic ads, and I don't think people generally trust anyone on there. I remember the last time I tried to sell something on Craigslist, I didn't even want to meet anybody that responded to the ad. What kind of person would actually meet somebody off Craigslist? Farmish is an app that tries to connect like-minded people who deal with agricultural items or jobs, and in theory is a pretty cool idea, but it just hasn't taken off. Not a lot of users, and just about everyone on there is there to sell and not buy, so didn't really get any positive feedback on that one either. And you might want to think that word of mouth would be good enough, right? You get your eggs out to a few people, they love them. Surely they're going to tell their friends about it. But as unbelievable as it may sound, people who don't raise chickens just don't talk that much about the eggs they buy. I mean, sure, somebody might have your wonderful colored eggs on display in their kitchen and maybe it sparks up a conversation with one of their friends. But at the end of the day, that's not going to net you a ton of sales. So now let's talk about a few of the things that did work. I think the most common thing I heard from people who were talking about the success that they had selling was that they would regularly just engage people in conversation about their chickens, the joy of raising them, how much they enjoyed having the fresh eggs at home to share. This is what really got people interested. And little things like a homemade sticker on the carton with your farm logo, or even pictures of their hens with a little story about them, which I thought was an awesome idea. This is what really attracts people to your eggs and keeps them wanting more. And it makes sense. I mean, people can get eggs anywhere, but what they can only get from you is that connection to their food, knowing exactly where it came from, hearing about how the hen who laid those blue eggs is your favorite girl who loves to be held, or about the Moran who laid the darkest eggs they've ever seen was a chick you hatched at home and raised its whole life. So use those people that you talk to every day anyways, and let them know how well your chickens are cared for. Emphasize the quality difference between your eggs and the ones that sit in cold storage for 2 months before they get hauled out of those disgusting factory egg farms. Now, I would guess that for those of you that have already started trying this, posting on Facebook was one of the first things you did. But it needs to be more strategic than just, hey, dozen eggs for sale, $5. Post pictures of your day's bounty, showing off all the colors you collected that day. Share a story about something funny that happened when you went to the coop to collect. Get people interested in what you're doing. Show them how much it means to you. By the time you actually offer your eggs for sale, people are going to feel this connection to what you're offering, and they're probably going to ask you if you have any for sale before you even talk about it. You kind of have to keep in mind that buying eggs from you is going to be less convenient and probably more expensive than just grabbing them as they walk through the grocery store. So you need to give people another reason to choose yours. Another option that really seems to have gained popularity for that lately is the roadside egg stand. You may have seen pictures of this on Instagram or Facebook. People put up these little stands, usually with some cool vintage looking farm decor. They offer their eggs, maybe veggies from their garden. I've seen wild flower bouquets, which I thought was a really cool idea, and even little homemade crafts for sale. Usually these are operating on an honor system. Take what you want, leave the money in the box. Of course, you would need to live in an area that could support this kind of drive-by business and hopefully not get robbed. But I think it's a really cool way to sell your farm goods without taking a lot of time out of your day running deliveries and things like that. And there's something cool about the idea of just pulling over, hitting up a little farm stand, picking up some eggs and going. Finding these unique ways to present your eggs is going to help separate you from the store-bought options while building a relationship with your customer and giving people a story to take home as well. And it helps build a relationship not just between you and the customer, but between your customer and your chickens. People buy things generally for two reasons: because they need it or because it makes them happy. Have you ever been genuinely happy when buying some eggs in a grocery store? Yeah, me neither. Now, how about when you buy something that came from your neighbor's kitchen or a cup of lemonade from some kids down the street? It's totally different. I mean, no one's going to talk about the pumpkin pie that you grabbed at Costco on the way to Thanksgiving dinner, right? But bring in a homemade pie that you made from pumpkins grown in your backyard, and all of a sudden you've got a story to serve along with that slice that people are just really drawn to. I think in this modern world we live in where everything's so automated, there's still something appealing about eating something homemade or getting some sort of handcrafted gift. It's more rare, I guess, than it used to be, which kind of makes it more special. And that's what you want to offer to your customers: a little story or memory to take home with them. Something that makes it special to buy your eggs. Something that makes it worth it to go out of their way and pay an extra buck or two. Now, there's going to be some challenges. Sometimes your girls aren't going to produce as many as you expected, and maybe you can't fill an order. That was something a lot of people talked about and could possibly cost you some customers. So probably important to not overcommit. You might find that you're the sixth person in your neighborhood posting eggs for sale when you list on Nextdoor. Backyard chickens have become popular and a lot more people have them now. So it could be a little bit of a saturated market. which is really just a great opportunity for you to set yourself apart from everybody else and really make your eggs that much more special. Like any small business struggling to find a place in the market, you'll need to find a way to separate yourself and provide something that others cannot. But luckily, you have the resources to do exactly that. Safeway may be able to keep their shelves stocked with the cheapest eggs in the world, but they can't put a picture on that carton of your favorite hen or offer a story about how you saved the life of a chicken who laid those speckled eggs. Look at it like you're not just selling eggs. You're offering a little piece of something that you're passionate about and that makes you happy to share. That's how you connect with the people that are your customers and really keep them coming back for more. I would bet that most of y'all out there who have been getting eggs from your chickens for a while, you've probably already given away a bunch of them, and I'm sure you were happy to do it. Talk to those that you've given them to. Try asking them, hey, what would you be willing to pay for a pack of farm fresh eggs? What could somebody do to make it easy for you to get them? If you spend a little bit of time learning about your potential customer base, what's going to attract them and keep them coming back to your eggs, and how you can make it a special experience for them, I think we'll go a long ways in getting this helping you to earn a little bit of extra income to pay for all the things that we spend money on for our chickens. I know there's a lot of it. I bet if you do build up a customer base and start selling some eggs each month, it's not the money that's going to keep you doing it. It's going to be fun. It's just one more thing about chickens to enjoy. Hopefully there's a few tips in there that you hadn't thought of before, or if you're just getting started, gave you some things to really think about. So good luck with it. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys soon.